ever since I was young, I always knew I wanted to be a podcaster. Welcome to Ravings and Reviews. I'm Jack Kluth.
And I'm Lauren Werscher. And today we have our first special guest of this semester. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bradley Schultz. I'm another film production major here at MSUM.
Woo! So, because we wanted to have Brad on for this week's podcast, he got to choose the movie. And so Brad's been on the podcast before last semester, and he chose that he wanted to review Scorsese movies with us. So this week we decided, or I guess Brad decided, that we were going to watch Goodfellas. So, Brad, you were really, really excited about doing this movie. Would you like to give us a little bit of an explanation why you like this movie so much? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but...
A little bit of background about your experience with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will say it's probably my favorite movie of all time, directed by my favorite director of all time. So it's pretty fun to get to talk about it for an hour straight.
Exactly, yes.
I'll take any excuse I can get.
How long ago was the first time that you saw this movie?
Oh, I want to say maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And since then, you've watched this movie how many times?
8 times.
8 times.
Nice.
Infinitely rewatchable.
I mean, it really is. This is a really, really good movie. I mean, I watched this earlier today obviously in preparation for the podcast. But I really, really enjoyed this movie. So, first impressions were very, very good.
I watched this like a week and a half ago, actually, with Brad.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So to get prepared for the podcast, I was going to watch it again. And this is a 2.5 hour long movie. So I was wondering, like, okay, I just saw this like a week ago. Is it going to am I going to get bored at all during this second watch? It was only 7 days ago, but nah, it was just as entertaining the second time around. Very, very rewatchable.
Yeah. So the first movie, or the first Scorsese movie we reviewed with you last semester was Taxi Driver. So I feel like that was a pretty good introduction of Scorsese movies, because I'm not super familiar with a lot of Scorsese's work more than just like the names. Like, obviously I knew Taxi Driver, I knew Goodfellas, I know Wolf of Wall Street. You know them all by name at this point, but I haven't actually watched any of them, and this is giving me a good excuse to actually watch them, because
For sure, yeah.
Scorsese is a really, really good director, and I have thoroughly enjoyed his work so far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as for this movie, like we've said numerous times, this film was directed by Martin Scorsese. It came out in 1990. It was produced by Irwin Winkler and written by Nicholas Pileggi. And it stars the likes of Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Lorraine Bracco, which, coincidentally, Robert De Niro starred in Taxi Driver, which was the last Scorsese movie we reviewed on the podcast.
Yep.
So, and I guess Robert De Niro stars in a lot of Scorsese's work.
I was going to say, yeah, and The Irishman, and what? Are there
Cape
more?
Fear, Mean Streets. They're kind of the Hollywood dynamic duo.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah, so this was a really good movie. I don't know how to get started with this. I mean, there's a lot to get into.
Let's dive into it. There is a lot to get into. It's 2.5 hours long. And like I'd said, I'd seen it a week ago, and I was worried about it wouldn't be as instantly entertaining as it was the first time. But no, this is one of the most entertaining. It's very fast paced, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of clips along at a very smooth speed. It never waits too long on any one character, topic, location. It always moves around fairly quickly, but not too quickly that you're not getting the correct information.
I mean, it's obviously rewatchable, considering Brad's watched it 8 times and still considers it his favorite movie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What I found super interesting about, because I did do a little bit of research when I was going into this, and apparently this book is actually based on a nonfiction book written by one of the screenwriters, which was Martin Scorsese was one of the screenwriters for this movie, but the other one, Nicholas Pileggi, wrote this book called Wise Guy: Life in a Mafia Family. And it's about the actual Henry Hill, a real-life former mafia associate. And I thought that was really, really cool.
It definitely
Like-
adds a whole nother like dynamic to what you're seeing on
Exactly,
screen to know
yeah.
that it all like was really happening.
Yeah, to know that like Henry Hill, Paul Cicero, Jimmy Conway, all these people were not just characters in the movie. To know that they had like somewhat real not even somewhat, like real counterparts to
Mhm.
them was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my first time watching the movie, and then the credits roll, and it says it says some fact about Henry Hill or whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was a real story, and my jaw just hit the floor
Yeah.
because there's so much stuff happens in here that's so like larger than life that when you realize it all actually happened, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So there is like a "Where Are They Now" segment at the end, which like Brad said, it caught me by surprise. I was like, wait a minute, Henry Hill was real, Paul Cicero was real, like these people were real.
Mhm.
Like that is it was really, really jarring to see.
Well,
And
you see that get thrown around so much in movies now. It was based on a true story, based on real events,
Yeah.
based on, whatever. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is something we've talked about on this podcast,
Yeah.
that does it as well. And that is absolutely false. It like is not really, it's like loosely based on some real life characters. But yeah, so I saw that at the beginning of this movie and I was like, okay, based on a true story. But then, yeah, like you guys said, it has the "Where Are They Now" segments for some of the characters. And I did some of my own research, and yeah, like the real Henry Hill backs up like 90% of this movie. Like, yeah, this was real. So it's super cool that he was able to do that, like adapt a real life story into a movie. And you're right, it's so larger than life that it doesn't even feel like something that should have happened in real life.
Yeah, I think a good way to describe this movie is definitely large. I mean, especially considering things like the story itself, the, like what kind of like subject matter we're dealing with, even down to like the time span of the movie. I mean, this movie is set from like 1955 to 1980. That's like 40 years.
Yeah.
Like that's a long, long, long time. My math was not right on that, but it's okay. Mental math is not easy, but yeah, it definitely, I mean, obviously it's a very kind of I would say maybe a little bit Hollywoodized idea of like what mafia, because this movie is about mafia, like that's mostly the central theme of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And while maybe it might be a little Hollywoodized to like a little bit more exaggerated, it's still telling the story of like the mafia and like how it was. And I know us kind of living in Minnesota, we're not super into the big mafia life, so it was definitely a huge.
Speak for yourself, Lauren.
Oh. Uh-oh. Oh dear. I think I might get whacked, guys. But anyway, us just kind of we're not really used to seeing that kind of stuff, like especially like in the beginning when we see a lot of Henry's life when he was younger, like living in, because like this movie starts in, like I said, 1955, which was also a time where none of us were really alive, so we didn't really know how things were back then.
Mm-hmm.
So this was just a really good. I mean, obviously, like I said, it's probably a little exaggerated, but it was definitely jarring to see some of the things that went on during like the mafia times.
Yeah. Like you said, the movie spans so many years. Martin Scorsese does an excellent job at like really kind of embracing each time period that certain scenes are in, specifically with like the music and how that evolves as the movie goes along. It's really fantastic. He uses a lot of music that already exists like in real life. There's not a terrible amount of like composed score. It's a lot of like songs that already exist, but they work so well. Almost all the lyrics have something to do with what's going on screen. They go
Exactly.
the music pairs with the visuals fantastically.
Yeah, and I think it does follow, like the music kind of does follow the time period a little bit. I mean, I know especially like during the times where it was in like the 1950s, it followed or used some music from that decade, like from the 50s.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really, really cool to see, especially because like I recognized some of the songs and I was like, oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
It's a nice little tune to back up this maybe not as familiar to me scene, like just because like I just remember seeing like, I mean, none of us live in New York. Like we don't know. It's New York, right? Or like where? Yeah. Like we don't live in New York. We don't know how things were set up then. At least I don't, because I was like, wow, this is not what I was like when I was his age. This was not what I was used to seeing. I didn't have a job when I was like
You weren't
14.
smashing car windows and blowing up factories.
No, I wasn't. I was that was not something I was doing when I was younger, but
Well, in regards to the soundtrack, I think Martin just has this like almost supernatural ability to just like pair image with sound. And every single song, every beat drop just hits so perfectly with what you see on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that song was made for this movie.
yeah.
That's really how it feels, and there's no other way to put it, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that sentiment held true for Taxi Driver in a lot of ways too. Even though I don't remember that movie using a lot of like pre-made music, like some of that was done mostly for the movie, but still, like that the scores of Martin Scorsese movies have been very, very good and have added a lot to the story itself.
Yeah. So while we're just on the first impression segment, Brad, I want to ask you, the first time that you ever saw this movie, what was your reaction to it? Were you like instantly blown away, or were you like, yeah, this is really good, but then it took like 2 or 3 more viewings to really cement itself as your favorite thing?
I was pretty much immediately hooked. It instantly became basically my favorite movie ever. I think I rewatched it like the next week just because I was that like
nice.
hyped about it. But
Nice.
yeah, I've loved this thing ever since I've seen it. So
Do you just remember what your first Martin Scorsese movie ever saw was?
I believe it was Taxi Driver, and I think
Okay.
I saw it just like maybe a month before I saw Goodfellas.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Gotcha.
So this movie follows the life of a character we mentioned, Henry Hill, who is a mafia associate that had been involved in the mafia ever since he was really, really young. Like you did in like what you did in the intro. That's basically how the movie starts. There's a lot of narration or like from Henry Hill about his life and like growing up, about how he wanted to be part of the mafia. Like he saw how powerful they were. He saw what kind of status they had, like what kind of money they had.
Mm-hmm.
And all he wanted was to be part of that. Like he wanted to do that. So, and then he did end up obviously making some connections and doing that. Otherwise this movie wouldn't have happened. But
Yeah, yep. He starts off working for a cab factory. Cab service.
Yeah, cab service.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, and obviously that cab service is owned by the mafia. And so eventually the beginning of the movie is him setting up all his connections with everybody and seeing him establish like his relationship to like Paulie. And
Paulie's I like Paulie a lot. I mean, I know he's a criminal, but like I don't know.
He's a comforting presence.
He's a comforting presence.
yeah,
I mean,
weirdly enough in the movie he is, yeah.
I mean, he does kind of become a father figure to Henry in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially considering his real father was an abusive, very, very abrasive man.
Yeah.
Paulie just kind of became this really one of the only father figures that Henry really had when he was growing up.
He's a very steady presence in Henry's life, which
Yeah.
is what makes the end of the movie so much more sad. We won't get into that right now.
Yeah, we won't get into that. No, we'll get
yeah.
into that after we take a break. But I'm really excited. That's why I'm like kind of tiptoeing around because I don't want to get into like some of the spoilers of the movie because like you said before, this movie is very, very plot heavy and like moves very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like each part of the movie is a story. Like the movie starts out with some exposition, but like it picks up really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, before we like immediately want to jump into the story, there's still a few more technical elements that I have to gush about. I mean, first, like the narration. Usually that's like when you're writing a movie, that's like a no-no. Like, oh yeah, don't use voiceover narration. That's lazy. That's a bad way of doing it. But Martin Scorsese goes fully in on the narration, as he did in Taxi Driver too. And just like Taxi Driver, it works just as well here, if not even a little bit better. To help us explain or help us understand everything that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because most of the narration is from Henry Hill, but there do come some times where there's narration from his wife Karen that come in, especially when it's still in the exposition stage where he's talking about how he met his wife and how he grew up and like found love with her, and it just normally, yeah, you're right, like it's more like show don't tell is the biggest rule in movies, but I feel like the narration really works for this.
100%, yeah.
And I think it's a big mafia epic that spans 3 decades, and there's just so much detail put into the world building and the life that they live that I'm not sure this movie could have been done without the voiceover. There's just so much stuff you have to explain, or they dive into every aspect of their lives. So
yeah, you definitely have a huge point about the world building, because like it definitely they don't leave any point up to the imagination. Like they tell it how it is, and you can really you can see the setting. Like it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Another stylistic element that Martin employs is, wow, I sound like I'm writing like a film paper. Another cool thing he does is the stop like action frames. Like he freezes on a particular frame.
Oh yeah.
They're great. Me and my girlfriend were watching it, and because you don't really see that in movies now. That's a very like pretty rare thing to see. So we were watching it, and it took my girlfriend aback. She's like, oh, that's like weird. But she's like, oh, but it's really cool frames that they choose to stop on, and very like important moments in the character's life. And I absolutely agree. One of the first stop is like his dad beating him with a belt when he's a kid.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one is when they are about to shove the mailman's head into a pizza oven.
Yeah,
they freeze right on it. Yeah, really, like it almost has like a comedic feel to it at certain moments. It works really well.
And then there's sometimes where it doesn't. Like I remember there was a part where they literally freeze on a moment, and there's some narration from Henry that's like, "This is the moment where I knew he was about to kill him," or like he was planning to kill him. And like that was a really good way of like punctuating that kind of sentiment, because I do agree with what you said. Like freeze frames in movies aren't typically like they're not super common, and sometimes when they're used they're kind of niche, and they can be kind of just cheesy and played off in funny ways. But I don't feel that way about this movie at all.
No,
like it's done really, really well,
and it adds a really fun stylistic element to it. Like right off the bat, in the opening scene, you get that freeze frame of Henry's face with like the red car lights shining on his face, and instantly you know that this is just going to be like a fun, energetic, really just like well edited movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got this really noticeable style that I've fallen in love with over my multiple viewings of the movie.
Yeah,
yeah, just like with the style. From the minute you watch the movie, the style is shown to you. Like, this is how we're presenting our movie. And another thing that's thrown at you is kind of the brutal lifestyle that these mafia members live. Right off the bat, within the first 30 seconds, they're stabbing and shooting a guy in the trunk of a car pulled off on the side of the highway. And so the movie starts off with a bang, quite literally.
Yeah, quite literally. From I think there's like 4 from like a gun.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think it's a really great way of like immediately sucking you in. There's not, you're like, oh, where did this come from? How did this situation happen? Why are they so mad at this guy? What's happening? And so there's not even a moment where you're not into it, or it's like, oh yeah, I kind of had to take 5 or 10 minutes before I get into it. No, it's the second the first frame comes on screen.
Yeah, because we've definitely we've reviewed movies like that where it takes like a couple minutes to get into it, like to fully understand and get into the story. This was definitely not one of those movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is going to be a fun movie to talk about. So, do you want to maybe go to some songs and then we'll come back and talk about some of the plot?
Sure. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Woo! All right, we're back.
Woo.
It's time to get into some of the story. So here is your spoiler warning. So if you have not seen this movie, we really recommend that you watch it first. But just know that we are about to basically spoil the entirety of the movie.
Honestly, if you haven't seen the movie, what are you doing? Just go watch it. Even though up until a week ago, I hadn't seen this movie either. So.
I mean, we should probably also say that this movie is not really for the faint of heart. I mean, it's a mafia movie. It's not, I mean, it's definitely not the goriest movie that we've talked about, but people do die. A lot of people do die.
Like we just said, I mean, if you watch the first minute and you can't handle it, then you probably will want to check out. But no, yeah, I don't think it's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bloody, but I mean, I know some people who kind of squeam away from that. So just so you know, and also there's some pretty strong language used in this movie too.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, some of the terminology that they use is funny. Like they probably used the phrase "busting balls" like numerous times in the movie. And I mean, it's that term is just used for like you're messing with me, or like you're like it's just like poking fun, basically. That's what the term means, but it is used in multiple different instances.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can get into some of our favorite parts of the movie. So, Jack, do you have a favorite? Actually, maybe Brad, we'll have you go first. What's your favorite? What was your favorite part of this movie?
Okay, so I've got two. It's tied. Right at the opening, I think it's probably the best film opening of all time. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Like that is like the greatest movie quote of all time. And
it really is
so much. But my other favorite part is there's no dialogue, nothing's really like happening, but it's the moment you can see on Jimmy's face where he decides to kill Maury, and Sunshine of Your Love starts playing and it slowly zooms in on his face. Best part of the movie.
It is a really good spot.
So
yeah.
Yeah, I really Maury was annoying. I did not like Maury all that much. He was really annoying. Like I mean, obviously he had money on the mind, which was like basically the entire mafia, but like he would always like he came like on 3 different instances to bug Jimmy, like, where's my money? And Jimmy was like, all right, just freaking chill.
Yeah, so the first time I watched this, I didn't realize the full extent that Jimmy went. He killed everyone basically that was in on him, with him on this massive $1 million heist, the Lufthansa heist. Yeah. I don't know why, it just didn't click for me the first time I saw it, but then I saw it the second time. I'm like, oh my God, like that's that pink car that the guy was telling him about. I'm like, oh, that was like,
roast beef. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, wow. He's like, it made him way more like cruel and like ruthless in my brain after I realized that, like he axed off everybody.
Yeah.
So that really put like a new fear of Jimmy, even though, I mean, I was already... he's a pretty intimidating character, but yeah, that, I guess my brain just clicked with that the second time around, so yeah.
What was your favorite part of the movie, Jack?
I don't know. What immediately comes to mind is why do you think I'm funny?
Yeah, that scene's really, really good.
Most scenes with Joe Pesci are great.
Oh my God, yeah.
He's such an awesome actor. He's
Joe Pesci
all of his scenes are really good.
He's just got this presence about him where every single time he's on screen, there's just like this tension because he's just so volatile.
Yeah.
I feel like he could kill anyone at the drop of a hat.
Right.
He's like he feels like kind of unhinged, but at the same time, like he's completely aware. Like it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Pesci is a very, very good addition to this movie. I mean, while I was reading, I learned that like there was a lot of improvisation on his part for this movie that he did. because Scorsese basically just let the cast do what they want, which is really, really funny. But I guess that kind of leads into my favorite scenes from this movie, which was I really love Tommy's mom. His mom, which is Tommy is Joe Pesci's character in this movie, and they basically they go to his mom's house after killing a man to go find a shovel to bury and get rid of the evidence. And his mom wakes up and comes downstairs and is like, "Oh, you're home. It's been so long." And then they stop and have dinner with her.
Yeah, really sweet.
It was the funniest thing.
Now that you said that, the food in this movie is
to
die for. It is crazy. I can smell the food through the TV screen.
Awesome. There are multiple instances where they show people cooking, and I'm like, gosh, I'm hungry now. There's so much good food in this movie.
The food is so important in the movie that at the end of the movie, Henry Hill is running around trying to sell guns, get cocaine taped to a woman and get her on an airplane, dodge the cops in a helicopter. And so he's narrating everything that he's got to do in his day, and pick up his crippled brother from the hospital. And within all of this stuff, he includes, just as importantly, then I gotta go and I gotta make the sauce. I gotta make that tomato sauce. So it's he puts that on the same level of importance as his cocaine and drug run.
Yeah, he's make sure the sauce doesn't stick.
Yeah,
it's just it's so funny that spaghetti marinara sauce is up there with money and drugs, drug dealing.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Yeah, the food in this movie is exquisite.
But this scene stood out to me the most because it was just the concept of we gotta go bury a body and dispose of the evidence. So, yeah, we gotta do that. But we can stop and have dinner with your sweet mom for a minute. Because she was such a sweet character. I loved her a lot.
I love the part where she pulls out the painting too.
Yeah, she's like, look at this thing
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
One dog looks one way, one dog looks the other. And this guy got a nice head of white hair. He's like, what do you want from me? It's just the funniest quote.
Yeah, that is a really good moment.
I mean, yeah.
I've been looking on Amazon for that, a reproduction of that painting.
Oh my god! Yes.
It's just, oh my god.
And then you can totally, when people come over, just be like, "Do you want to see my painting?"
One dog looks east, one dog looks west.
It's so good because, she's just such a sweet character, and it just made me think of how us as Minnesotans do things. We got other priorities, but let's have dinner with grandma.
Yeah, family and food. They're two of the biggest Italian themes in any gangster movie.
Basically. I mean, I'm pretty sure that dinner scene was almost entirely improvised. At least by Joe Pesci.
Oh, really?
I think from I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think when he was talking about hey mom, can I borrow this knife? And it's I got something stuck and I gotta clear cleave it off. I'm pretty sure that was all improvised by Joe Pesci, and I'm that is extremely entertaining. Mm-hmm. But I do have another favorite scene from this movie that really stood out to me, and it ties into what you were talking about earlier with Jimmy. It's that entire death montage or the murder montage that happens towards the end of the movie, mm-hmm. where basically they show these different members of the mafia that you'd seen earlier in this movie. You talked about the car. You talked about there's two people that get found in a car. There's two people that get found in a dumpster that
mm-hmm.
two poor garbage truck drivers find. And there's one guy hanging in a meat freezer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god. And then it's playing to all this sweet music
mm-hmm.
going through.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really notable scene because, at least to me, I feel like the movie could have ended after that.
Oh,
really?
They
could have totally they mention it in the narration. They're they call us Goodfellas, and they do the kind of this is the finale type monologue, but there's still 30 minutes left of the movie. Mm-hmm. But it feels with that finale music and the narration going, it feels like that could have been the end of the movie. but then it's not because then all of a sudden you see like Tommy going into a room, bang. And then the movie just picks up speed a bit, but like also just like I mean, before this, the tone of the movie was never like happy, but it was still kind of like fun in like some way. It was upbeat, but not like super happy, you know?
Right.
Like obviously we're like in the middle of a montage of people getting murdered. Like that's not happy, but like after because unfortunately Tommy does get killed, and I was very sad about that. But after that, the movie's tone just kind of takes like a turn for the more just like serious and sad, because that's kind of like the downfall for all three of the main characters, Henry, Polly, and Jimmy, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a lot.
Well, and circling back to that murder montage you're talking about, this is a 2.5 hour long movie. So throughout the whole, first two acts, we've gotten to know these characters. We know their names, we know their backstories, and it's like, oh look, Frankie Carbone is in the meat truck. Like you recognize these people, so that makes all of their deaths like way more impactful.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is going down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Even the small characters, you really feel connected to them. Yeah. Yeah, everybody's just got so much personality in the movie. And the names of some of the side characters are fantastic.
Like you mentioned, what was it, like Johnny Roast Beef?
Johnny Roast Beef. Nicky Eyes, Jimmy Two Times.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave each one of these characters their own little, like, spotlight in the movie. And I thought that was really, really cool, because there were a lot of them. Like, there were at least, like, 20 named mafia people outside of the main cast.
I think my favorite is like Freddie the Wop, or I don't remember what the first name is, but yeah, that was one of my favorite. And then Tony Two Times, is that it?
Jimmy Two
Times. Yeah, Jimmy Two Times.
Because like he stood out to me too, because like he had like his name had like a thing to it, because like he had to repeat everything he said.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I'm gonna go get the paper.
Well, and there's this long one-shot sequence of them going through this restaurant, and Henry's narrating all these scenes, and it's like, oh, and here's Pete the killer, and he's like, hey, I took care of that thing for you.
Yeah, because they have this
so clever.
Like the camera just stops and like focuses on them, like they're just talking to someone walking by. They're like, hey, how you doing? And like, yeah.
And this movie, it just has so much heart, because every single detail is hammered out, and you really like. This world feels so lived in.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I think that's why the world building is so great. It's just all these little details, and they're very specific, but they all feel like they work together, and they just give you, information about the universe that these characters are living in. It's really great.
I mean, in my notes, I do have the word Samuel L. Jackson written in all caps. Because I was totally not expecting it to be in this movie. Because then all of a sudden they talk about, like, what's his name? Like, Stax?
Yep, Stax Edwards.
Stax Edwards. And then all of a sudden I see, like, I see Samuel L. Jackson walking out of, like, a pool table, and I'm like, wait a minute. Excuse me? He's in this movie?
He's hardly in it. But
he's hardly in it, but, like...
makes it even better.
Yeah, I mean...
I'd almost call it, like, a cameo, because he's just, he just does not have that much screen time. But his... Stax gets shot by Tommy. And I guess that leads me to... something else, the blood squibs in this movie are fantastic. The practical effects in general are super good.
Yeah.
It feels very brutal when things happen. One in particular, Henry gets out to beat up someone that tried to like assault his girlfriend Karen, and he beats him with the butt of a gun, and it looks really brutal. Like it's pretty messy. Yeah,
there was a lot of emotion behind that too. Like you could definitely see like on Ray Liotta, who's the actor who plays Henry Hill's face, like his like just determination between each like bam, bam, bam of like just beating this guy over the head with the butt of a gun. Like it was all determined. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
Well, and on the note of violence, like going back to Taxi Driver, I remember we were talking about how Martin Scorsese never glamorizes when people are being killed or hurt or anything like that.
Not.
And this film is no different. It's all in like single shots. There's no flashy editing going on. You see what's happening, and it's brutal, it's ugly, and it's honestly sometimes hard to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's really the point of the whole movie, really.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, I was just happy they at least let Samuel L. Jackson's character put on pants before they killed him. Because I was like, oh man, like they just let him. They like just came into his apartment. They were like, hey, you're gonna make coffee, and like that was really funny too. Because like after they kill Stax and everything, they have this weird little like gag where. I can't remember. Was it Jimmy? Who else was in that? It was Jimmy and Tommy, wasn't it?
It's Tommy and Frankie Carbo.
Tommy and Frankie, and then like Frankie goes in, like he's like Frankie, go put on some coffee or something, and then like Tommy goes and kills him, and then like they go to leave, and he's still holding the coffee pot as he's trying to leave, and he's like, no, dumbass, put the thing down.
Yeah.
Like it was just. This movie is very, very funny in a lot of ways that I did not expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really, really good time.
It rides so many lines and it rides them perfectly. It's a very violent mafia crime film. It's like, it's for certain sections, it's like a romance between like Karen and Henry as they like fall in love with each other. And then sometimes it's just straight up like comedy, like, or it will be a scene of like, violent mafia action, and then there's a joke at the same time, and it balances all these different tones and styles so perfectly.
Yeah, it really does. Like I do have to say, I feel so bad for Karen and his kids. Oh, like I was not expecting him to like. I mean, maybe like getting married was expected for Henry Hill in this movie, but not having children. I was not expecting like that first scene where like she signs the search warrant for the police and then she comes back holding a baby. I'm like, wait, that's hers? Like he's actually having children when he's like in the mafia. I'm like, oh my god. So that was a little jarring, but like I mean, especially like his kids' reactions to all of this, and especially his wives. Like that one scene where he's in jail and like Karen is smuggling the stuff in for him.
Yeah.
That scene just is etched in my brain. Like how it's not brutal, but it's still like soul crushing, especially just like seeing like his daughter just wailing after like they just like get into a dispute. Like it was so soul crushing. I'm like, God, those kids do not deserve that. Like it was a bad time.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. That prison scene, just every scene, you can be like, oh yeah, that scene. Like, there's certain segments of the prison, making the food in jail, slicing the garlic with the razor blades, just stuff that shouldn't be as interesting as it sounds. Just becomes like, I don't know. Martin Scorsese just elevates like certain things to just be so interesting.
Yeah, that close up of Polly cutting the garlic with the razor blade.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting that scene to be as like detailed and as, you know, like dynamic as it was, but it was really cool.
I want to talk about the end of the movie a little bit, or at least closer to the end of the movie. Right when it says 1980 and you get that shot of Ray Liotta in his car and he starts narrating, and just you can tell from the music, you can tell from the tone, you can tell from just the way that Ray Liotta's acting, you know it's all about to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And it was just as tense the second time I saw it. I'm on pins and needles during that. And it draws it out. It's like 25 minutes before like, oh, I can't swear. Oh, it's when stuff hits the fan, it hits the fan, but it takes, you know, a whole day to get there. And not many movies can do that to me. Really keep me tense, especially after I've seen it a bunch of times, or in this case, saw it like really close together. The only other movie, at least not the only other movie, but one that comes to the top of my brain is Whiplash. Mm. I've seen that movie probably 10 times, and still every single time I'm just as tense. And then, with this, like the end scene, or the end half hour, I was just as... I was just as tense the second time as I was the first time.
Yeah. And, so, that whole last half hour or so, like, I was just thinking about this, like, the first 2 acts of the movie take place over like 20 years or something, but the last half hour takes place roughly over like a day to a week, and it really like it stretches out that time, but the editing at the same time is so much more fast paced and like flashy that it just builds this anxiety within you that like it. And at first you don't even notice. You're like, why do I feel this way? But yeah, there's just so much going on with it that there's a million things going on all at once. You really get immersed with that.
Yeah, you really get to experience the chaos of that scene as if you were like part of Henry's family that's getting ready for dinner that night, as like Henry's running around and like trying to take care of like 7 different things at once. You really do feel super immersed in that chaos of it all.
It's kind of funny because I mean, none of these characters are like good people. They're very interesting characters to watch, but like at the end of the day, they're not really good people. But do you ever find yourself like still rooting for them? Like you kind of don't want them to get. I'm like, those damn police. I wish they'd get the helicopter out of here. You know, you kind of don't want them to like fail at the end.
Yeah,
and it's really, I don't know. It's a testament that you can make characters that are like deplorable bad people into like people that you can root for. I mean, I guess that's like an anti-hero type of thing.
Yeah, it is definitely an anti-hero type thing. I mean, I definitely found myself rooting for Tommy at least a little bit when they were talking about how he was going to get made, as they call it, which is basically like they're going to make him they basically just like give him a promotion or like make him more of a boss in the mafia. And I was kind of rooting for that because I'm like, that's a big step up, dude. Like you're really going places in the world, and then he gets killed. So it was just, yeah, you do sometimes find yourself rooting for the characters that aren't the best, because you're definitely right in saying that like there's no saints in this movie.
No. Everyone
in this movie, like even down to the ones that aren't even really technically in the mafia. Like Karen's not a great person either. Like she didn't deserve what she got, but like
she's got her fair share of flaws, like any good character should.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and she like directly addresses it. She's like, yeah, I know that like there are multiple red flags and I should have left, but like she doesn't want to. So yeah, all the characters are very flawed, not good people. But they're interesting as hell to watch on the screen.
Yeah. I want to go back just like before we go on our last break and come back for some trivia. I want to go back to kind of talking about the like where are they now segment. Like that's the thing that ties this entire movie to it being like somewhat real. Like they're not even somewhat. Like this is like these people were real. In the where are they now segment, which is just like basically a couple scrolling cards over like right before the end credits. It explains that Henry Hill is in witness protection. And that him and Karen have split, which is probably for the best, to be honest. If things are how they are, if how they were portrayed in the movie. Paul Cicero died of a respiratory illness while in prison in 1988. He was 73, and this part wasn't necessarily in the movie because it was like kind of an update after the movie was released. Jimmy Conway was eligible for parole in 2004, but he ended up also dying in prison in 1996 of lung cancer.
Oh, okay.
So that was just it was a cool little addition, or like just kind of a way of connecting this to real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I just found that really, really interesting. And especially since like they brought in the author of the book that I mentioned that was like that it was based on Wise Guy. Like they brought in the author of that to be one of the screenwriters. Mm-hmm. So like this is a really like retelling of that story, of like that nonfiction account. So
yeah.
Just really, really cool all around. I mean, I just love, I can't say anything except like, it's cool because that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go to one last break for some music, and then we're going to come back and do some good old fashioned Goodfellas trivia.
All right. Stay tuned, everybody.
All right, we're back. And Jack over the break reminded us that he had one more thing he wanted to talk about. So we're gonna discuss that one last thing, and then we're gonna get into some trivia.
Oh yeah, just real quick. We were talking about our favorite scenes, and I remembered one of my. It happens like really early on in the movie, but it's when Henry goes to his first court meeting. He gets pinched for selling cigarettes, and he goes to his first court meeting. And obviously, because the mafia knows everybody, he gets out scot-free. And he walks out of the courtroom into like the lobby, and like everyone like from the town's mafia is there, and they're like, "Hey!" Because you got out without like any thing. So everybody's just like cheering. They're like, "Oh, you got your first court case. Congratulations."
Yeah, they like congratulate him like he just graduated or something.
Absolutely.
He's like, "Hey, that's my boy."
It absolutely cracked me up the second time I saw it. It's so funny.
Yeah, that was a really good scene. I mean, it definitely put things into perspective. Like,
Yeah.
this is the kind of things that the mafia gets happy about. Like,
Yeah.
they like, I mean, he really was like their baby, like their kid, like their little guy. Like they were just really hoping that he does well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that reminds me of another scene from like in that first chunk of the movie where he's still a kid. So Henry's like working in like the pizza store or wherever, and this guy is running up on the sidewalk, and he's been shot. So Henry goes outside and grabs like a bunch of aprons to like wrap up his wounds, and then there's Tootie in the background being like, "You wasted 8 aprons on this."
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
you're wasting the aprons.
Like he's not saving a guy from literally bleeding to death.
It's like, I've been shot. Like, don't waste the aprons, dude. Like, come on, man. Like,
Well, Tootie's biggest concern is get this guy off my doorstep. I don't want people
Basically.
dying in front of my shop.
exactly. So he's like, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's like, someone's gotta toughen this boy up, and I'm like, but he just saved a dude.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time to get into some trivia.
All right.
Jack, did you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. In the original shooting script for Goodfellas, at what point in the film was Billy Batts killed? Billy Batts is killed about, probably, I'd say, almost perfectly at the halfway point of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, because that's when they, like, tie it back to the cold open.
Yep.
Of, like, because, like, it's Billy Batts in the back of the car when, like, they just, like, kill him.
Mhm.
But, oh gosh, do you mean, like, around, like, what scenes, or...
Like beginning, middle, or end. Where had it originally been placed in the script?
It's originally at the...
Well, it
Oh,
starts at
gosh.
the beginning of
Yeah.
the film, but
Yeah.
Was it at the beginning?
Originally, in the first shooting script, they had the whole scene with Billy Batts. So the whole interaction where he makes fun of Tommy, and Tommy goes and shoots him or beats him up.
He literally just beats him to death.
Yeah, they saved that for the middle of the film. So there's a little bit more like mystery around this like dead body that's in the back of the car originally. And I think that was much for the better. Like I said, it helps with the sucking you in immediately.
Mhm.
Not that you still wouldn't be sucked in, but it gives it just a little flair of mystery or like curiosity that might have been taken away if they had chose to shoot that whole like scene from the beginning.
I definitely prefer the way they came out.
Mhm.
where it
I
does
do
the
too.
media res thing.
Yeah, the cold, I mean, it's kind of a cold open at the time because, like, it's literally just, it opens on Henry is driving, and then, like, they're just like, what's in the back? Like, they're just, like, thumping in the car, and he's like, did I hit something? And then they open the trunk, and it's like, oh, there's a dude.
Yeah.
So it's just, it was a cold open at the time, but as soon as you get the context of it, because, like, they do, like, repeat a scene where it's like, did I hit something? Like, halfway through the movie when then you know at that point, oh, it's Billy Batts is in the back of the car. But yeah, that was so that was originally all happening at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely prefer what they did with it, what they did with it in the original, or in the one that they have now. Okay, so my question is, how many times was the F word used in this film?
Oh.
Like we said before, this film is not for the faint of heart, and there is some very, very strong language used in this film.
I think it's upwards of like 200, isn't it?
Holy.
Yes.
I was gonna be like funny haha and say 69, but I thought that was gonna be too much, but maybe I'm undershooting.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Okay. The F word and its derivatives are used 321 times. An average of 2 uses per minute.
Holy.
And what's even funnier, I found like a bunch of stats on this. Joe Pesci says about half of them. And the script only called for the word to be used 70 times.
Oh, wow.
So that was like a huge overshoot on their part.
That's funny.
The wonders of improv.
Yeah, honestly.
Isn't there, like, you can only say that word, like, so many times before your movie automatically gets hit with an NC-17 rating?
I'm not sure. Well, this movie did come out in 1990, so
Yeah,
I'm not sure what the MPA's.
I thought it
ratings on
was,
were.
like, in the 300s range. Like, oh, don't say it 351 times, because then you get an NC-17.
Oof. I'm pretty sure this movie is rated R, but just a little bit of extra. When this movie was at the film's release, this movie had the most profanity in any movie ever. However, as of 2021, it's at number 17. The Wolf of Wall Street, which was also directed by Martin Scorsese, is at number 3. And currently the top spot of that goes to a movie called SwearNet the Movie, which is a documentary. It's like a comedy documentary literally about swearing.
Gotcha.
Which is funnier because
That
it
doesn't seem fair.
well, the number 2 spot, I literally looked up like the most profane movies, like the number of times that the F word was used in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the second spot is a documentary literally titled just the F word.
Like, okay, yeah.
But it's actually the F word, not like
about, yeah.
Yeah, because we can't say that on the air. So no. But yeah, there's some very colorful language used in this movie, and I feel like it helps. I mean, it definitely makes it feel more natural.
Well, I didn't even realize. I mean, I guess at a certain point, it's just like completely, I'm not even hearing the F words. It's just going over my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just blends in with the language that they're using, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I've got another trivia.
Ooh.
So at the end of the film, like basically right at the credits, there's like a rock and roll cover of Frank Sinatra's "My Way," and it turns out the only reason they didn't use the original, like the Frank Sinatra version, was because there was speculation that Frank Sinatra had actual mafia ties in real life.
Oh,
So he didn't want to be associated with anything like that.
Oh, shoot.
That's actually interesting. I mean, I didn't know it was a cover of a Frank Sinatra song.
Neither did I. But
Mostly because I could not understand the words that were said, because the song was just like, I'm pretty sure the band was British that covered it, because like the accent was so strong.
Yeah, I didn't know it was directed. I didn't know that it was originally by Frank Sinatra, but what I do know is that song kicks ass at the end of the movie.
It does.
That is such a good credit song. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
So, did you have another question?
Yeah, I did. How accurate did the real life Henry Hill say that this Goodfellas movie was? Like if you had to go from 100 to 1%.
I think he said, I'm pretty sure he liked it. Maybe he said like he liked it 80%.
He was like, I think he said it was like 90 to like 98% accurate. Or
Oh wow!
It was 95. Yeah, he says the real life Henry Hill said that this movie was about 95% accurate.
Oh wow!
In terms of everything that happened in real life. Notably, and we discussed this a little bit off air, but notably, Paulie, Cicero, and Jimmy were both much worse people than the movie portrays them. I have a statistic here about Jimmy.
we got stats, boys.
Okay, from the mouth of Henry Hill, according to Hill, he described Jimmy as a homicidal maniac who was brutally violent and responsible for at least 50 to 60 murders.
Oh my
wow.
So that is far more than is portrayed in Goodfellas.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, these characters were like even more hard and like tough in real life than what you see on screen. So
I mean, we've joked about it off air, but like that's just the tagline of this movie. Goodfellas. None of these people are good people.
yeah.
Okay, true or false? The character of Henry Hill in this movie did kill.
Brad's seen this movie 8 times, so I'm going to go with his answer.
That's true. That's false. It's true that it's false. So while that might not be true for the real Henry Hill, we don't know. Ray Liotta's character does not kill a single person in this movie. most of the murders are done by probably Jimmy.
Actually, yeah, because that's what Henry says at the end of the movie. He knew that Jimmy was planning on killing him when Jimmy asked him to go kill somebody.
Yeah.
He told him to go whack somebody in Atlanta. And Henry was like, that's when I knew that Jimmy was going to kill me. I'd never come back from that trip, is what he says.
That was like when they're in the diner together,
The diner together, yeah.
Because, like, there was a scene before that kind of had me confused. It was, like, when Karen went to go meet with Jimmy, and then, like, he's like, go look at some of the stolen dresses in the window, or, like, in the shop over there. And then, like, she goes to look at it, and there's just, like, two shadowy figures in there.
Oh, yeah.
I did not understand that scene at all. And she's like, I'm scared, and, like, goes away.
Well, I was going to actually pose that question to you guys. What do you think? Because it's left up to interpretation because she runs away. Do you guys think that Jimmy was, like, trying to kill her, or would you think he was actually like telling her to go like pick out dresses?
I'm pretty certain that he was actually trying to kill her.
Yeah.
Mainly, well, I think at least the movie wants you to think it is, because after Karen turns around and like runs away from that alley she's supposed to walk down, the camera pans up and there's like a stoplight with and there's a sign connected to it that says "Don't walk."
Oh, really?
Oh.
I think that's just a fun little visual cue.
Huh. That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
I mean, I definitely think it's at least posed as, like, a threat of, like,
big time,
if you tell like, anybody about your connections, we will find you and we will kill you, Liam Neeson style. So,
yeah.
Even though this movie came out way before Taken, but...
Yeah. I've got one more. So Martin Scorsese's mother, played the mother of Tommy in this movie.
Yes.
We talked about her a little bit. But Martin Scorsese's father actually had a cameo in the movie too. Do you guys know what character he played?
Oh.
Or
can't
what
remember
scene
him
he
by
was
name.
in?
But he was in prison with them. And he was slicing the garlic and putting the onions in the sauce and all that stuff.
Yep, he was the other prison inmate that put too many onions in the sauce. Yep, that was the dad of Martin Scorsese.
It's like, don't put too many onions in the sauce. I didn't put too many onions in the sauce.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we did talk about the fact that, like, food is definitely a huge part of this movie. And it definitely, I mean, it may not be central to the plot, but it definitely helps.
It's central to the characters' lives.
Yeah. Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
It's a very simplistic one, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Who else auditioned for the role of Henry Hill in this movie?
John Travolta.
No, but thinking about that would have been very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, granted, I thought it was Johnny Depp for the first couple of times that we saw him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I could definitely see, especially in some of Ray Liotta's mannerisms, I could see a little bit of Johnny Depp, but like, in the end, I did see that they were like completely different people. But
yeah,
do you have any guesses?
I don't think I know this one. No.
Alec Baldwin.
Oh, ew. Well, I mean, he's a good actor, but I don't want to see him in this movie.
I don't feel like
Yeah.
I don't feel like they made any sort of errors in casting in this movie. They did.
Not at all. No.
My only little gripe with it is there's the first like shot of after Henry's childhood. It like the camera pans up and it's like in the mid 60s and they're supposed to be 21 at the time. But like a 45-year-old Joe Pesci is standing there, and we're supposed to believe he's 21.
Yeah, I suppose we don't have too much time left, but that was your last trivia question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but do you guys have any criticisms at all with the movie? I guess like that is the most minor of criticisms I could make is that the characters like don't all age proportionally. Henry goes from being like a kid to an adult, and that looks good, but everyone around him kind of stays mostly the same.
Because Henry had like a kid actor and an adult
right
actor.
and an adult actor,
whereas like most of the other actors just stayed the same,
right? Like Paulie kind of looks basically the same.
Paulie looks the same from
Paulie
beginning
until end. So does Jimmy for the most part. But yeah, is there anything that you guys had any issues with?
Honestly, I didn't. Nothing like really substantial. I thought it had some really like even on a technical side, like we talked about the music already, that some really really good music in this. Some of the shots were really dynamic. Like I loved some of the pans they did. Like they did some really good extreme close-ups and like the freeze frames. Honestly, I don't have any like technical or like storyline criticisms for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I feel guilty, but I have nothing to say that's bad about this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it's genuinely one of those like rare perfect movies.
Mm-hmm.
Is this how we were with Taxi Driver too?
It's pretty damn close to how we were with Taxi Driver. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like Scorsese, he makes only perfect movies. At least these two, I would say. But,
very valid. All right, so I guess with that, do you want to give our final thoughts and ratings?
Yeah, sure. Brad, would you like to start?
Okay, best film of all time, 5 out of 5.
5 out of, yeah.
I'm a little biased since it's my favorite, but I genuinely think it's reasonable to say that it's the greatest film ever made.
I mean, it's definitely up there with a lot of the classics. So you give full points to Goodfellas.
Full points.
I'm gonna have to second with a lot of what you said. Like this movie is really really good. It didn't really lose me at any point with any of the action or anything like that. I was not bored at all during the movie. Everything just was compelling, it was interesting, it was fun at some points, it kept me on edge. Like it had a lot of good elements of a great story, and they translated it to a film really, really well. So I think I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10.
All right. Yeah, it was all right. I give it like a 6 out of 10. No.
Oh, wow.
No, it is legitimately as great as I thought it was going to be. This was one that kind of like before I saw like Pulp Fiction or Citizen Kane, I was just slightly worried. I was like, oh, I hope this like lives up to my expectations, because so many people I know absolutely love this movie. But I think it did. I was not disappointed at all after either of my viewings. So yeah, what you guys said. Yeah, no, super fun. Yeah, and honestly, I have no complaints either. So, yeah, I gave Taxi Driver a 10, and I'll give Goodfellas a 10 as well. Right. Now, here's the only thing. I don't know which one I like more.
Ooh,
Taxi Driver and Goodfellas.
That's a good question.
They're really, really close for me.
I can understand that.
And I don't know which one I would pick, honestly. They're both great. I mean, I gave them the same score. But, yeah, if I had to make, like, a Tarantino ranked list...
Sorry, I'm fucking dumb. I meant to say Martin Scorsese ranked list.
Which I was thinking about doing on Letterboxd. I don't know which one I'd put first.
Yeah, that's really tough.
I'll have to think about that. But...
I mean, maybe... I think maybe I might put this one a little higher than Taxi Driver, just because I really like Joe Pesci, his acting style. So,
yeah. And
he was, like I said before, he was a really, really good comedic addition to this movie. So that might push it a little higher for me, but you're right. Like it's really, really hard to make like a list of, Scorsese movies have been really, really good so far.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, and Taxi Driver's also, like, in my top 4 films of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
It's really, really close.
Yeah.
I can totally understand, like, preferring one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm undecided as of right now. I am having a lot of fun with these Martin Scorsese movies. So, you don't have to commit to anything right now, but if you ever want to come back on the podcast and keep doing Martin Scorsese movies, do you have any tentative idea of the next one you'd want to do?
Yeah, kind of. I feel like maybe it would be fun to switch it up from his crime movies and try something like Shutter Island,
Ooh.
which is more of a horror psychological thing, which he doesn't have a whole lot of films outside of the crime genre, so I feel like it might be fun to explore one of those.
Yeah,
okay.
That's really cool. I mean, I've been meaning, ever since we've started doing some more Scorsese films, I've been meaning to watch some of his more of his works, like Wolf of Wall Street is one I've been meaning to watch for a while.
If you have the time, Irishman is one of my favorite Martin Scorsese movies as well.
Yeah.
Casino and Raging Bull are also really, really fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to review them on the podcast. Yeah.
I'm happy to come back.
Exactly. Yeah,
Awesome.
we'd love to have you back. So, that was our episode on Goodfellas. I really enjoyed that a lot.
Oh yeah, it was great.
We had some good discussions last week for the Truman Show, and now we're back. And now we're back here having some good discussions for Goodfellas, and
we're on a roll with the good movies. Maybe we should take a break. Lauren, would you like to introduce our next few movies?
Yes. So, spooky season is coming up. The next Friday that we will have will be October 1st, right? Is October 1st a Friday?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Hold on. It might be. Yes, October 1st is next Friday.
Okay.
And with the beginning of spooky season, we thought we should do some more spooky movies. So, Jack, I have a question for you.
All right.
Do you want to play a game?
I would love to play a game.
So to announce what we're going to be doing for the entire month of October, we are going to be reviewing every single installment of the Saw franchise, up to and including Spiral, which came out this year.
Yes.
So,
me and Lauren are both massive Saw heads.
Yes. We both have been dying to talk about Saw ever since the beginning of this podcast. So we figured this year is probably either a good, if not the best time to do it. Because there's not enough days in October to talk about every single Saw movie and give them their own episode, we're going to do a couple double feature episodes. So stay tuned for next Friday, where we're going to review both Saw 1 and Saw 2. And we're going to keep going with Saw 3 and 4, Saw 5 and 6, and then 7 and the Jigsaw movie, and then Spiral.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. I don't have that written out, but like that's how it works in my head. So
yeah, that's our tentative plan for October. So make sure you guys tune in, because it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be really fun. Both Jack and I are super, super excited. So excited that we almost wanted to announce it last episode, but we were like, no, we gotta wait.
Yeah.
We gotta wait till we actually have the episodes planned. So awesome.
All right, this was a great episode. It went a little bit longer, but I think it was warranted.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, we'll wrap it up. New episodes are still coming out on YouTube. I'm still editing the backlog, although I'm caught up now. So the next one that should be posted was our Candyman review, and Truman Show, and then eventually this one, and so on. So those will be up in a little bit.
Yep. So keep watch of our YouTube to find all of our past episodes. We do have some really, really fun episodes up there. Just look up on YouTube Ravings and Reviews, and you'll find all of our past endeavors.
Yep. All right, then we'll call it good.
We'll call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we hope to see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.